technical issues that time.
There we go. And we're live. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our Hideaway's live conversation this afternoon, all about capturing Hwange through the lens. And Garth and I will be welcoming photographer David Rogers onto the screen to share the conversation stage, as well as his beautiful images and some photographic tips. How are you, Garth?
I'm very good, very good. And yourself, Kim?
Very well. So Garth and David recently went on a trip to Zim, which I was extremely jealous of. I'm sure a lot of people were. And they're going to talk to us about how the trip went and how their stays were at NANTWICH and Elephant's Eye, our properties in Hwange. Before we begin, though, I would just like to say thank you for everyone for joining. And if you can pop your names in the comments, and to keep the travel family alive and well, please can you share and tell people about our live conversations as well, to share the joy of travel in Zimbabwe. So Garth, tell us about your trip to Zim. How was it, and how was it traveling in COVID times and traveling with David?
Yeah, so I think it was mid-year last year, obviously when we had been in the middle of the 2020 COVID. And I really wanted to get out and have a look and see how Zim was doing. And I chatted with Dave, and Dave Rogers, we go back a long way. He's traveled with us to Madagascar. We used to run some Dow trips there in Madagascar years back, and Dave came with his family and did an amazing article in the Getaway magazine. So, and Dave and myself have obviously known each other for many years. So I got hold of him and said, listen, Dave, man, let's go up to Zim. I want to see what's going on. You know, things that we've all been locked up. I want to see if Zim is travel ready. Are they COVID ready for travelers? You know, and it reminded me of actually in 2000. I mean, obviously I've been to Zim many times, but a trip that it was sort of similar in some sort of ways was in 2009, just after the unity government was formed in Zimbabwe, and people just didn't have information on Zim, what was going on. And I thought, right, we're going up. And I went up with a friend of mine, Wayne, and we flew in Vic Falls, and we took one of our vehicles and we traversed around the whole of Zim. We went from Vic Falls to Hwange, to Matopos, to the Great Zim Ruins, to the Sabi Valley, up to the Eastern Highlands, to Harare. Then we went on to Mana Pools. Then we went to Kariba, Matusadona.
You're very lucky. Zim is curious place to travel, and a lot of people only see the falls, and to be able to go through all of it is, I think, important as well, because it's so diverse.
Yeah, so it was very similar. And sorry, Kim, you go for it.
You said something about Getaway, and I got excited because this trip that you've recently done has been published in Getaway as well, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but I couldn't help but want to announce it.
Yes, so I mean so we chatted, and then Dave said, "Hey, Garth, let me chat to Getaway and see if they're interested." Because I was saying, listen, that the other point I also mentioned is like in the 90s, Zimbabwe used to be so popular with South Africans, and so I was saying to Dave, listen, Dave, Zim's ready for South Africans again. That's, you know, when the borders open up, South Africans are going to look regionally to travel. And I wanted to see, does Zim have the product now, you know? And that was the difference between 2009. After that, we did the first comprehensive brochure on Zimbabwe. But at that stage, the infrastructure wasn't there. In some places like Vic Falls and to an extent Hwange and Matopos, there was some good product. But the rest of the country, there wasn't. And the difference now with this trip was amazing product. The product's there. We just need to get clients back. And the industry in Zimbabwe is so welcoming of South Africans, and the rates are just amazing for this year and for next year, you know. So anyway, so Dave pitched that to the Getaway, and Getaway jumped at it. They said yes, they want to see, you know, is this product ready for the South Africans, and let's see what's going on.
Yeah, and I think, as you say, people looking for regional travel, as well as there have been a lot of articles coming out about how safari destinations are perfect for sort of COVID and post-COVID travel, in terms of there's a lot of space, there's a lot of exclusivity, you know, going on game drives You're in the wide open spaces, you're spending time with your family and friends and loved ones, but it's more exclusive, and you can kind of handle that. And as you guys experience, Zimbabwe seems to be ready for that, which is great. We do have some wonderful discount codes that are going to be popping up randomly. They're one-off discount codes throughout the chat. So for those lucky people who can write them down, send us an email, and you'll get a discount off your next holiday with Hideaways, which is amazing. So I think we should bring David.
So just Kim, sorry, before you bring Dave on, one thing I love about Dave is his honesty. And, before we left, he said to me, Garth, I have to be neutral. I have to tell it as it is. Is it ready for South Africans? What are the road conditions like? What's the infrastructure like? Are there lots of roadblocks? And I said to Dave, of course, Dave, it's, you must. It must be from a neutral perspective. And, we've been doing a lot of collaborative work together with different people. And Dave was so blown away. Well, he could talk about it. Hopefully he won't contradict me. But he was so blown away with Zim. He's actually decided to do a couple of photographic departures utilizing our Hideaways lodges in Zimbabwe. Yes. And the Getaway article that's out now it came out on Saturday. I've got a couple of copies of the Getaway edition. Has it's 11 pages, just phenomenal information on Zimbabwe. But anyway, enough of me. I'm taking all of Dave's time.
Well, maybe we can use those discount codes to come away on a photographic safari with David Rogers at Hideaways, at our Hideaways properties. So can we please have David join us in the conversation from our background fairy? Hi, David. How are you?
Hey, guys. How's it going, Garth? How's it, Kim?
Good.
How's it, Dave? How are you?
Nice to see you. I hope you can hear me okay.
Yes.
Yes, I can clearly hear.
Good.
No,
Great.
So Garth was just telling us about your amazing trip together to Zim.
Yeah.
And he said that before you guys left, you said that you
we had a coffee, and then Garth started talking about Zim, and then my bags packed themselves. I just had to go because it sounded so awesome. And being locked down was not fun. So being out there and doing some work and crossing some borders, and it wasn't so bad. We had our COVID tests, and we got there, and all went fine, and Zim was very ready for us. Cool.
Feeling like a normal human who's able to make those travel choices.
Yeah, getting there.
Yeah. So, Garth, I might just steal Dave from you.
Sure.
So thank you for joining us.
Only a pleasure. Yeah, it's best that I leave. Otherwise, I might start talking way too much about how amazing Zimbabwe is. But I'll leave that all up to Dave.
Okay, fantastic. So, David, I'm just going to introduce you a little bit to our audience. For those who don't know David Rogers, he is an amazing photographer. We were actually just chatting earlier. He's also an amazing journalist, and he actually started out as a writer, writing and editing for Reader's Digest, if I'm correct.
Yeah, that's correct.
And then you got your first photo job with the game. Can you remind me?
I did my first story with Reader's Digest, where I started with Great Game Parks for Southern Africa, and I worked as a writer there. And that stage, we were just looking at and then Getaway, and then freelance, and it's been a long road since then.
Amazing. It's always very exciting to talk to people who've written 12 books about Africa and taken pictures of our beautiful and bold continent, and you know so much and have such a passion for it.
Yeah.
I actually wrote a little thing for our newsletter, and I'm just going to read it out because I feel like it describes you perfectly. David Rogers has Africa running through his veins, absorbed into the corridors of his mind, captured by the written word as well as through the camera lens. He has explored its landscapes, people and wildlife in all its rich diversity of beauty and untamed character, and has made a career out of his passion for our bold and biodiverse continent. So welcome.
Very nice things to write, Kim. It sounded great.
Well, it's true, and you've been my muse lately, so I'm very grateful. So let's talk Zimbabwe, and let's talk your trip to the Hideaways properties in Hwange, and as well as capturing a holiday and a safari through the camera lens, which I feel makes it quite focused, pardon the pun, and sort of timeless when you get to capture your holiday through the lens. So if you'd like to walk us through it, Dave, from the beginning of your trip.
Okay, great. I'd just like to share with you, I put a few pictures together, and if I can share those with you, that might be a helpful way to start, because it is a long story, and I'm going to rush you through it because I don't want it to be long and boring, but we just need to get that to, maybe I can't get it to play again, but we can try. Okay, there, we landed in Bulawayo, which is sort of bottom of the screen, and we made our way up to Hwange. And it's, this is South Africa's neighbor, so it's a really easy trip to do. And the first thing we did was we flew with FastJet, and they were welcoming, and all the lodge staff were welcoming. And I was just reminded just how amazingly friendly the Zimbabwean people were, and obviously so excited to have us.
Yeah.
So they were ready for us, and they were grateful for South African travelers, and it felt incredibly safe. I mean, I have to say that South Africa is a country where, people travel around with some concerns about things. I could have probably left my camera anywhere unlocked in that country, and everyone felt it was not a place to be threatened.
No. So I grew up in Zimbabwe, and whenever I came on South Africa to holiday, and even still now, after having lived here for a year, and I'll leave stuff around a bit, and all the South Africans will be like, "What are you doing? You've got to keep that." And in Zim, we just don't. It doesn't feel that way, as you say. It's a very safe space with very friendly people, and I'm sure the people on the ground as well are so grateful for travel to be picking up again and working and being involved.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, we felt that. We felt very welcomed and very safe at all times, and just exploring the country at a time where there were relatively few people. Not that it's ever very populated, but going to Hwange and seeing maybe one or two other vehicles the whole day. We went into Hwange into the when we went into the North Park, into the North Camp at NANTWICH. We were the first people to come through the gate for a week. And we really had the place to ourselves. Of course, it's sad for the country and for tourism, but if you want to explore Africa as it was, this is the time to do it.
Yeah, I think Hwange, what's quite magical about Hwange is that it never really gets too busy. You do feel like you've got a lot of the park to yourself.
Sure.
You're not sort of queuing to see an animal or whatever. So it's quite, it feels quite exclusive generally, but being there at that time, you guys were there in the green season, hey?
Yeah, we were there in the green season, and we were there in November, so it's very much a transition time. And I mean, I've done trips to Hwange and to Mana Pools in November, and it can be, we got there just after quite heavy rains, so it meant that we didn't really get the concentrations of elephants that you might be used to seeing in the park, because they become quite dispersed. But we did see amazing bird life, and the clouds are just incredible at that time of year.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if what you've got on my screen, but I wanted to just show the relative positions of the two camps that we went to at NANTWICH, and Elephant's Eye being here near the main camp, and NANTWICH being here. And I was just so wanting to go further, because NANTWICH is right next to the border at Botswana, at Pamazinda, and you can, Panamatenga rather, and you can get right across the border and into Chobe. And I mean, for exploring this region, this is a really well-placed camp.
It's so exciting.
And if anybody ever wanted to avoid going through sort of the busier borders in Zimbabwe at Beit Bridge, to come up through Botswana and then come up here up to Panamatenga and access the park from there, how quiet, you won't get a quieter border point anywhere. So that was very tempting. So just an amazing...
Sorry to interrupt. And I imagine in that area, because it's on the border of Botswana with the animal corridors, there must be quite a lot of movement between parks.
Well, I was looking at now, and I mean, this is part of the Trans-Frontier, the 4 countries Trans-Frontier Park. And I think this park is 14,500 square kilometers, but it's more like 50,000 square kilometers when you include up to Luwa Plains through the Lower Zambezi. And this is an area where wild dogs and animals and elephants are just running free.
Yeah.
And that's quite an amazing thing.
Animals know no borders, yeah.
Yeah, the animals know no borders, exactly. Exactly. So, you know, Elephant's Eye is a lovely camp. I mean, what an authentic place to visit. I mean, I really felt that Garth had put his heart into the camp, you know, and going there and, you know, meeting his staff. They were kind of, you know, you really felt they were invested in an owner-run camp. And you can't overemphasize the feeling you get in an owner-run camp, where actually everyone knows the managing director, and, you know, they're all friends. And I mean,
kind of like a home kind of feel.
100%. And you feel that immediately. There's a sort of homeliness about the camp that is really, really quite lovely. So, you know, just talking about the photographic journey, I mean, the pictures that I'm showing you, I wanted to show you some of the interiors of this wonderful camp as well, which has even got a fireplace in it for cold winter nights. But I mean, for me to, you know, I immediately want to photograph this before in fact, I was there to photograph. So I love doing this, and I wanted to encourage people. So I wanted to talk to them about photographing on safaris, and I always think that capturing the experience of your place to show pictures like this is always great.
So you said something to me earlier, David, about, you know, where you stay as part of your experience. Everybody talks about what pictures did you get of the wildlife, but also where did you, I often say, I'm like, where did you stay? What did it look like? You know, and since we've been stuck in the same place for a while, I feel like being in another room with a different view is going to be so much more, it's going to have so much more impact. So where you stay is important. And taking pictures of it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that if you're going on a safari, or certainly has always been to tell a story of your experience, and that doesn't end with the wildlife. I mean, it starts with the people you meet, the food, the experience. And so I always say to people on photographic trips, just try and capture a little bit of everything, because it'll bring back the memories and tell you a story in the same way that you would for a normal magazine.
It's a visual diary, yeah.
Visual diary, exactly. Mm-hmm. So here, and then, you know, we actually spent one night at Elephant's Eye, so there wasn't an enormous amount of time to explore, but what a lovely, lovely camp. And then we drove, you know, through the park, and it's very close. It's visited regularly by the presidential herd, which come in, and I thought very strongly about what it would be like to actually photograph those elephants. That's the view from the camp, and there's a waterhole right there, and that's where the elephants are coming to drink. So you're going to have amazing photographic opportunities shooting into the light, into the setting.
I mean, that backdrop on its own is incredible. Even without the elephant, those skies are amazing.
Yeah, that's what you get in summer. You know, the summer clouds are just terrific. And of course, so the camp is very strategically placed to visit. I mean, you can get to these waterholes, and this is a particular dry season kind of picture. So you'll be driving out from LEI, and you'll be going to experience, you know, this sort of sighting, and you can sit at a waterhole like this and see, you know, the animals streaming in, and it's quite spectacular. Also, this was a very dry time of year, and the animals were suffering. But towards the end of the season, predator season, the lion action kind of gets better, and in fact, there's a lot of predator action, but the opportunities in Hwange to take photographs are just incredible. But I would sort of recommend that people do travel with like-minded people. So what we do on our photo workshops is we try and encourage people to stay out late and to get up really early, because that's when 90% of the good photographs happen. And photographing into the sun and doing things that people might not normally think about doing, that's kind of what we get up to. And we'll always have a professional guide with us, who'll give us the opportunities for getting out of the vehicle, getting low, getting these low shots of animals. And that's a very important part of creating unusual and interesting photographs.
I guess also, you as a photographic guide are there to literally give people a slightly different perspective, like you say, these different angles and things, looking at the bush in a slightly different perspective, instead of just driving past it at the same level all the time. You're getting much more involved.
And I think the guides find it quite interesting, because often you'll stop and you'll photograph smaller things and do things when the light's not great, and you can do different things. And I think that the creative opportunities when you're with like-minded people increase. I mean, you learn from one another. Somebody says, "Oh, why don't we do that? Why don't we do that?" I just wanted to also talk about, I mean, you guys have these really, really great Land Cruiser vehicles. And I was going to say, if you're going to go on a photographic trip, have 2 cameras, somewhere for your wide and for your zoom lens. And I mean, using a mobile phone nowadays for wider shots is 100%, but don't expect to change lenses in the field, especially in dusty conditions. And then, tips and tricks like using auto ISO and manual. These are things that we talk about on the trips, and how do we work on the angles. And then I'm just going to go back. I'm sorry we're showing you this sort of slider here, but the next camp we visit to is NANTWICH. And NANTWICH was, for me, the kind of place where I just wanted to stay forever. I mean, what edge of the earth kind of lodge this was, right against the Botswana border. And it's got these incredible natural seep lines where big, I mean, again, we were only there for 2 nights, but these were the sort of concentrations that we were seeing from where we were.
And this is in the green season, which you said earlier.
And the lions were calling, and boy, we wanted to stay. In fact, the buffalo was died outside camp, and we thought we were going to see some lion action, but we didn't. But I mean, this is really a place where you can expect to see great predator action, and you're going to see it from just sitting in camp and relaxing.
So there was something that I wrote down earlier about specifically for NANTWICH, actually, and Elephant's Eye, because I've experienced it there, is you can almost have an armchair safari by sitting on the veranda of the lodge, and these things come to you. And I remember last year, almost this time, chatting to Tony Park about it, because it's also his favorite place, especially for the predator action, and how it all sort of comes to you and around you, as well as, never mind not seeing it, but hearing it and sensing it and smelling it. It's kind of an all-encompassing experience. Sometimes even if you don't see it, it kind of feels like the story, which is amazing.
I think it's a place you don't want to rush away from. And I mean, I think now, particularly during COVID times, I think because the rates are so good, if you could go and spend, typically people say 3 nights is enough on a safari. But I think right now people are less inclined to want to move around quickly. And if you could spend longer at a place like this and just really get it into your soul and take your time, things will come to you, as you say.
And I think that's the nice thing about a photographic safari, is because every day you're really looking, you're really observing. You might go out on a game drive at sunrise and capture that light. The next day maybe sunset. Then they might be on foot. So there are different ways to experience the bush each day that can allow you to stay for a little bit longer. And you said something earlier, David, about the light is something that gets you up in the morning. It kind of drives you to chase the light. And if you can't stop and take pictures early in the morning, you might not particularly even go on the trip.
If I'd photographed this later, I would have had Garth in the pool here. But, he was still enjoying this, a bit of a late sleeper. So if he was on a photographic safari, he would have been in trouble, for sure.
Yeah.
No, definitely. Waking up early. And you mentioned also going on foot. And I think that, NANTWICH is a place which, you are going to walk on foot. And I think that, again, looking at some of the smaller things and just focusing on, chameleons and birds and bugs and whatever you might see, because it's being on foot is terrific. You're probably not going to get great pictures of larger animals because they tend to move away. But for landscapes and smaller, what an amazing thing to do that is. Yeah.
But I also feel like you learn more when you're on foot. You know, you really listen to the guide. You're taking pictures. You're looking at the texture, the shape, the environment of where each animal or leaf or pod is placed, and you kind of absorb a little bit more when you are on foot.
Yeah, to be honest, for photographic safaris, we tend to be in a vehicle because people often have quite heavier gear to carry. And then what we'll often do is we definitely get out the vehicle because that's so important, but maybe go for a shorter walk. So we'll go for a game drive where you try and pick something up and then stop and then walk a little bit. But
I suppose I think about the size of my camera and it's easy to walk with, whereas the size of
and they all
photographic.
And they are all getting a lot smaller. Yeah. But this sort of thing of sitting next to water holes, you're not going to be able to be, on foot that easily. These water holes are obviously got lots of groups of elephants coming in, and you can have, families lining up for the water hole. It's just an amazing experience during the dry season. And
at these water holes, you sit at one angle for a couple of hours. You were saying something earlier about different angles in the car as well?
Sure. Well, some of the water holes you're able to drive around, but generally not. So then you'll plan to go to a particular water hole either for a particular time of day, and this was an afternoon shot, but you can't driving in national parks off-road is fairly limited. So you have to plan your shots quite carefully rather than drive around. But backlighting is obviously something it's a strong photographic device, much more interesting than just getting a front-on light. So this again, the backlight, the evening glow, and people like.
I suppose it picks up the dust and it kind of gives it a
it does
a different ambience. But that stark difference is also nice, especially if you're looking at taking pictures in the dry season where the stark difference is reality. You're
quite right. I mean, and you're an artist yourself, Kim, so I'm sure you see different light at different times. For me, my love is just summer months because I think that your clouds are just so dramatic and such a fascinating time of year. I love the build-up of clouds. I could photograph clouds all day. That's a bit.
So when I'm not in Zim during those summer months and during the build-up of rains, I miss it, and I'm like, where are those? Because it's such a dramatic. Feeling as well, like the clouds rolling in, and and
the nice thing about Hwange is that the ground is very sandy. So even if it does rain, you just got to make sure you go to a place that hasn't got black cotton soil, because then you're going to get seriously stuck. Yes. But I mean, most of the Kalahari is quite sandy, and you can still drive around. And we haven't had. I mean, I think of the times that I've missed a game drive because of weather. It's very, 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 very seldom because these thunderstorms are so short-lived.
Yeah, and they're also quite lovely to be in. I remember being on a game drive with some clients actually in Hwange National Park. You spoke of Hwange just now being on the border right there by NANTWICH. And the clients were all like, oh, no, we must put on our rain jackets and whatever. And I was like, it's raining. And all the animals sort of came running out and the elephants were celebrating. And I was like, this is a great time to be out in the bush, and as you said, they're short. So, and then the light that comes after the rain for pictures, I feel like would be.
And you get better rates, which also is, and less crowded, less busy parks.
Yes, which is a bonus.
And of course the birds. I mean, these are not the summer migrants really, but birding is always great in Hwange. I mean, there are 400 species, and you can just have great opportunities with birds because it's not always the biggest stuff, is it? Really.
Is it better to take pictures to go out looking for birds in the morning in photography, or is it morning or evening?
Some of the birds. I think most birds are more active in the morning, or more. the light in the morning is lovely, and some of the birds are definitely more active in the morning. But some, I mean, these owlet was seen in the middle of the day, and that vultures in the evening, and some in the middle of the day. So you see them right. Yeah. But I think if you're definitely wanting to get, morning's always lovely. But we seldom kind of structure the trips around birds. We kind of see them as something that it's just going to add a bonus to the trip, and always stop for them when we see them.
In terms of taking a picture of a bird, I know very little about big camera photography. So you would obviously need, that's when you said you need 2 cameras when you go for a game drive, in case you need that zoom for the smaller stuff, such as birds, right?
Yeah, you do. I mean, I think that, I sometimes when I look at what you can do with a phone nowadays, I mean, you can get really great.
Amazing.
For birds, I don't see a way around it quite yet. But who knows, it'll come. Yeah.
Mm.
But
so
600 millimeters, 500 millimeters, what you can need for birds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dave, there's a picture here on the side you brought up earlier. It's of the campfire at Elephant's Eye. Do you mind just going back to that one quickly? So I remember sitting there one night, and when I talk about an armchair safari, and the animals do literally come right up to the front here, the swimming pool is just on the left of these chairs, and all these elephants came in, and they came right up to the swimming pool and drank from the swimming pool while we sat around the campfire. And I remember sitting there quite nervously being like,
for sure,
should we leave? Is this fine? And it was amazing. Like, the guides were amazing in terms of watching the ellies and reading their body language, and having them so close. And I can only imagine if you were a photographer, to have your camera there at that moment would be, priceless.
Yeah, exactly. And I think having the guide there is also important, because us photographers tend to get a bit carried away when things like that happen.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, when we were in Mana, and I was interviewing one of the people, and the Elise came right into the camp. And you have to be watch, as you say, watch their language, what they're, if there's their body language. And the guides are so good at that.
So now this article that you did, and all these pictures that you took, got into the Getaway magazine.
That's it, and I think it's already on the shelves.
Yes.
And they did it's lovely. It's an 11-page story, and it tells the story of a trip which goes beyond Hwange. We went to Mana Pools as well, and we went to Kariba, where this picture was taken, and we went to Matopos and to Vic Falls. So, and there's a lot of interesting content about Zim and what people can expect, and I think it's really a really positive story. And as the cover says, it's relatively affordable for South Africans to go there. Now I think the borders opened today. Did they? People can travel, and hopefully for foreign people, they're going to have access fairly soon.
Yeah, and for me as a Zimbabwean, I always get so proud of Zimbabwe being mentioned, especially 11-page spread about our country and the diversity of it. You guys got to see a whole lot, which we will have you back to share the conversation stage with, to tell us more about the trip as a whole. There is one aspect of the trip that I would like to mention quickly. Is you said you went to the Painted Dog Conservation Center, and it's so important for hideaways to be supporting these conservation initiatives, especially in a time when there is no travel. Yeah, and you spoke about collecting stories and meeting characters. So can you tell us a bit about that?
I mean, that's the wonderful thing about, so both of these conservation people we met at the Wild Dog Center, which is very close to Elephant Eye, and they generally are involved with problem animals, because obviously wild dogs are roaming into villages now, and she was actually telling me, she said, these wild dogs are criminals. She said they keep escaping and eating the goats, and we can't get them. And she was just a lovely, lovely lady. And she said this group particularly were big trouble causers. But jokes aside, it's a big problem, and they're doing really good work. The gentleman on the right is a professional guide, and he told us a story about how he had spent COVID driving through the park, collecting truckloads of wire from old broken telephone wires that were going to be used for snares.
Yeah, I saw some of those pictures. It was amazing what they collected.
Amazing. And I mean, the people working on the ground in Hwange, I mean, friends of Hwange, the support that this place gets and the love that, it's much more than a national park. It's sort of a people's park. I mean, people are really so involved. Yeah.
And there are a lot of communities that rely on the park as well, And as you say, everybody's very passionate. And the Painted Dog Conservation Center does incredible things. And I think when people can travel again, if they are able to make sure that they include these impactful initiatives in their journey, the journey actually means so much more as well, which is
100%. I think so. And I think these organizations do depend so heavily on donor support and having people coming through and supporting what they're doing. In fact, before I went on the Getaway story, Painted Dog Conservation said to me, please go and visit. Tell the readers about that. Tell them to come visit us because we really, really need their support. And then
what we'll do is we'll pop their website and stuff up in the next coming days to give people more information about how they can donate, because it is extremely important.
Yeah, it is. Great. And then it was just also about, I mean, for myself, going and telling the stories and the characters. And the grave actually up on the top right, that you'll see at NANTWICH, and that's the grave of Crew, Percy Crew, who was one of the original farmers, used to farm up there. And they're fascinating stories about him too, about him support. And Hwange is full of, I mean, I could just spend so long telling the stories.
Yeah. And as you said right in the beginning of our chat, your journey with photography, your visual diary of your trip starts with the room to the experiences you see and the wildlife, to the people that you meet, and to the historical sites that you see as well, which is really important. Before we lose the whole slideshow, I do want to just chat about your photographic competition that we're going to be launching in the next couple of days. So David Rogers has put together a wonderful little prize. Dave, maybe you would like to explain it.
Sure. Well, I'm not being able to travel with people at the moment because I have been working quite a lot with individuals, private one-on-one online sessions to help people improve their camera skills by the next time they go on safari, they can be really, really equipped to know how to use their cameras and to do processing. And it's been a very positive, and I wanted to offer one of your readers a chance to share an hour with me learning about photography.
That's amazing. So what we'll do in the next couple of days, we'll pop up the terms and conditions for this competition and the end date. It'll include liking and sharing and keeping the travel dream alive, as I mentioned in the beginning. And then we'll let you know who gets to spend an hour with David Rogers learning how to use their cameras properly. I can't actually enter, but I would love to sign up someday for myself.
It is still come on a trip, Kim. We'll go on a trip together.
So as you said as well, are you not? I think we're putting together a photographic safari with you at our Hideaways property. So hopefully I can come on one of those.
That'd be awesome. That'd be cool.
And like I said before, and then I can follow you around and write about it, if you'll allow me.
Sure, that'll be great. Let's do that.
Okay. David Rogers, thank you so much for chatting with us today. It's been really lovely. And we've got a taster of what it'll be like to go on safari with you.
It's a pleasure. Thanks very much for having me. It's been great.
We chat soon.
Ciao, ciao.